Have you ever had someone say something to you in perfect English and somehow you still had absolutely no idea what they meant? Because that happened to me, and it happened at a supermarket. I was standing at the checkout waiting for the cashier to scan my groceries. Everything was completely normal until she looked at me and said, "How's your day going?" And my brain just stopped. I understood every single word. How's your day going? Easy English, right? But suddenly I was standing there thinking, wait, what am I supposed to say? Was she actually asking about my day? Did she want to know how I was feeling? Should I tell her I was tired? Should I tell her I had a stressful morning? Should I give her the full story? Or was I supposed to say the answer I had been trained to say since I was a kid? I'm fine, thank you. And you? And honestly, that moment was one of the first times I realized knowing English is not the same as knowing what English means in a culture. I started learning English when I was in 4th grade in Taiwan. Like many Taiwanese students, I learned English through textbook, vocabulary lists, grammar exercises, tutoring centers, and tests. We learn how to construct sentences. We learn how to memorize vocabulary, and we learn how to get the correct answer. And one of the most familiar conversations was, "How are you?" "I'm fine, thank you." "And you?" That was easy. There was a correct answer. But American English started confusing me when I actually had to use it in real life because suddenly there wasn't always a correct answer. There was a cultural answer, and I didn't know it yet. This is what confused me. If someone asks, "How are you?" why don't they necessarily want your entire life update? Why ask a question if you don't want the full answer? And eventually I realized that in many everyday American interactions, "How are you?" can function more like a greeting than an invitation to tell you an entire story. It's a tiny social connection, a way of acknowledging another person, a way of making a brief interaction feel a little warmer. And once I understood that, so many things suddenly made more sense. Because here's what can happen when you don't know this cultural rule. Someone says, "How are you?" And you think, finally, someone wants to know. So you tell them everything. "Well, today was actually exhausting. I didn't sleep well last night. Then my period started, and I had this conversation with my cousin. Oh, and my neighbor's cat just had kittens." And then you finish. You wait. You expect, "Oh my gosh, what happened?" But instead, "Oh, that's wonderful." And they continue doing whatever they were doing. And you're standing there thinking, wait, did I overshare? Did they not care? Why did they ask me if they didn't want to know? The funny thing is, they weren't necessarily being fake, and you weren't necessarily being weird. You were simply following two different cultural scripts. You thought question means information. They thought greeting means social connection. Here's another phrase that can be confusing. "Let's grab coffee sometime." If you come from a culture where an invitation usually means an actual plan, you might think, "Okay, when? Saturday? Sunday? What time?" And then nothing happens. And you start wondering, did they forget? Did they change their mind? Did I misunderstand? Sometimes yes, but sometimes the phrase was simply a friendly expression of interest. "Let's grab coffee sometime" can mean it would be nice to see you without necessarily meaning I have already decided when we are going to meet. Of course, context matters, and that's the important part. You can't always translate a sentence word for word and expect to get the entire meaning. This is what fascinated me the most. For years, I thought learning English meant learning more English words, more vocabulary, better grammar, better pronunciation. But living between cultures taught me something different. Language has an invisible layer. It's the social meaning behind the words. When someone says, "How are you?" you need to understand not only the dictionary meaning, but also the situation. Who is saying it? Where are they saying it? How do they say it? What kind of a relationship do you have? What are they actually trying to communicate? That's the part that textbooks don't always teach. And that's why someone can speak excellent English and still feel completely lost in an ordinary American conversation. Because sometimes the words aren't the problem, the culture is. So now, when someone asks me, "How's your day going?" I don't panic anymore. I don't start preparing my autobiography. I can simply say, "I'm good, thanks. How about you?" and keep moving, because I finally understand that sometimes the purpose of a sentence isn't to exchange information. Sometimes it's simply to create a tiny moment of connection between two people. And honestly, that was something my English textbook never taught me. But I'm curious, have you ever had an American say something that you understood perfectly, but had absolutely no idea what it really meant? Tell me in the comment, because I have a feeling I'm not the only one.